So we have some really great news to share in today's update, but I think the really big thing that's going on is that if you've been trying to follow the unemployment lawsuit situation, is really the fact that I think is that any state at this point, because we all know that as sad as it is to think, that unemployment is likely going to now be ending in 2 weeks universally across the country and certainly most states. Any state that is trying to fight to bring back their unemployment in any state that has already officially ended early, I believe is that this and next week is probably going to be a pretty major week for a lot of them to finally put in their lawsuit, if they were trying to put in any kind of lawsuit in general, because the idea is that I think all of those states now are going to be trying to put in their lawsuit in order to squeeze it in before the actual unemployment lapses on the federal level, hoping that by squeezing it in now, it can hopefully make it logistically easier if they do actually end up winning their lawsuit, or just even wanting to take a shot at trying to bring unemployment back, having it just logistically easier to have it actually physically happen. But so the really great news to start off with, maybe to share with every single person, is that we now actually officially have details that there is now officially a 14th state that has now filed a lawsuit in order to try to fight and bring back the unemployment benefits extension program. So a huge congrats now to the state of Iowa. So with Iowa becoming the 14th state, which is the really great news, I believe that the 14 states that now have some kind of lawsuit going on is going to be Indiana, Maryland, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Louisiana, West Virginia, relatively recently Missouri and Alabama, so we don't have as much information in those two states. And now, of course, with the brand new state that has just now officially filed a lawsuit being Iowa. So a huge congrats if you happen to be in that state. Now, the big thing right now is that I have a couple of updates for several states. As always, that if I don't get to your state, just know is that it probably means either there hasn't been as much been going on in your particular state, or actually, interestingly, it's very possible that I might have actually even already covered your state in yesterday's update. I will definitely give an update to Florida, just because I do know is that Florida's hearing was yesterday. Specifically, if you happen to be watching this in the future, Wednesday, August 25th, 2021, congratulations, because Florida already also officially just had their hearing, so we're going to talk a little bit about it today. But the big idea is that if you didn't check out yesterday's video yet, I highly recommend checking that out, because everything that we're going to be talking about in today's update is pretty much going to be building on top of yesterday's video. And there's a chance if we don't get to your state in today's video, we might have gotten into it in yesterday's video, which is basically, the name of that video is literally just called 13 states, and I'll put it at the very end screen, which I believe in the thumbnail it'll say 13 states, so you know which video we're talking about. But of course, in today's update, the great news is that now we officially have a 14th state. Always, maybe real fast before we begin, is as always, in light of the great news, maybe consider smashing the like button, consider subscribing, hitting the bell if you guys are interested, of course, and in getting updates. Huge thanks if you guys have been here for a while. It's always greatly appreciated. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, and actually, especially now that we are in relatively a level of time urgency, any particular information that you might have, if you guys have any particular information about your particular state, feel free to share it as well, because I think a lot of other people would really appreciate it in your state as well. So with that being said, now let's get this video rolling. So as just mentioned, is that the really positive bright news is that the 14th state, which we're going to start with because they are the most recent state that has now officially filed a lawsuit, is going to be in Iowa. The story to what really ended up happening in Iowa is that they ended up deciding to put together a lawsuit. They filed it against Governor Kim Reynolds, who is essentially the governor of Iowa, if you happen to be there. The plaintiff's name, or the person that the lawsuit was filed under, is essentially under an unemployed person. Her name is Crystal Marciniak, hopefully if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Crystalmarciniak. And the reason I specifically mentioned that is because remember how in Texas' lawsuit, as we kind of mentioned in yesterday's video, which once again I'll put at the end screen, especially if you happen to be in Texas, one of the reasons why Texas struggled with their lawsuit, or is struggling right now with their lawsuit, was because there were so many details that they didn't necessarily have fully ready within in the actual physical document when it came to filing the lawsuit. Of course, we already talked all about that, but one of the big things, if you did come from that video, is being able to identify the plaintiff. So the great news that in Iowa, they already have all of the documents in order, they've already filed it in, and they actually do have a plaintiff with all of the details to try to submit it. Of course, now that it just started, we don't really have any particular answer yet. What we're really waiting for is that they're hoping to finally just schedule a hearing, and then with every other lawsuit, it's pretty much going to start with the hearing, and then we're just going to pick it up from there to see what happens. If you are interested in just knowing the name of the lawyer that's going to be representing your case, or if you just want to look up the case in Iowa, because a lot of the lawyers will be releasing information if you just want to take down their name, is that the great news actually is that in Iowa, interestingly, is that there are actually several lawyers that are on that case now. So it's not even just one lawyer, it's actually several of them. But I believe is that the two biggest lawyers that most of you guys probably will have to know about is going to be Bruce Stoltz. So Bruce like Bruce Wayne, Bruce Lee, Bruce Jenner, B-R-U-C-E, and then Stoltz, S-T-O-L-Z-E Jr. That's the first lawyer. And then the second lawyer's name is Jeff Carter. So J-E-F-F space C-A-R-T-E-R, Jeff Carter. So pretty relatively simple name. So if you guys are interested in maybe following up, you guys can look up their names, and they probably should have maybe some kind of information to at least learn about the lawyer who's taking your case to, if you just want to know their background, whether or not you can trust them, or you enjoy them, or you believe in them, or just for personal insight. And now the next state that I really now want to talk about is going to be the state of Florida, and particularly because I think this is probably going to be a really interesting case study because there's a lot of things happening there now. So the big thing to know about in Florida is that they recently just had their hearing. So if you're watching this in the future, specifically, Florida's hearing was scheduled on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. So if you're watching this into the future, that was the specific date. And at this current time, when it comes to Florida's hearing, the key people, or simply put, is the name of the characters that you have to really know about in this story is essentially the judge. So the judge's name that's going to be making the decision in Florida, the person's name is going to be Lane Smith, L-A-Y-N-E space, and then Smith like blacksmith. The lawyer that is going to be representing your case, if you're interested in looking up information, or that has already been representing your case since the hearing has already happened, is Mary Mattox, M-A-R-I-E-M-A-T-T-O-X. And then the lawyer for Governor DeSantis, so the one that's going to be representing his case, so on the other side, is going to be Daniel Nordby, D-A-N-I-E-L space N-O-R-D-B-Y. And then the people that they're currently representing is going to be several unemployed workers that live within the state of Florida. So the story to what really ended up happening during the hearing in Florida is that essentially they ended up having both sides plea out their case like a traditional lawsuit and hearing, but they essentially wrote down is that the argument that they have is that the FPUC program, which stands for the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, is a federal law, as the name suggests, and so it's because of that reason, by taking away the program, they're actually doing something that's in violation of federal order, because they believe that inside of the text within the FPUC program, they believe is that there is a part of it that says that all of these unemployment programs are programs that the state shall, specifically the wording is that they shall, not may, but they shall do it, which in other words means that they essentially have to do it. What they ended up having is that they ended up having several of the unemployed people come up onto the stage, or just simply put, to just come up to speak about their particular experiences. And there were many people that were talking different stories, such as about what they've been through. They talked about a lot of the difficulties that were, happening when it came to things like finding work. There were people that were sharing stories about how some of them were trying to find work after many years, and were even applying to jobs in places such as McDonald's, and actually struggled to find a job there because they were told that they were actually too overly qualified. And I think the biggest particular thing that I think really stood out about this particular lawsuit, if you were able to watch it, is really the fact that the lawyer that represented your guys' case, they really tried to pick a group of people from a lot of different professions in order to try to testify about it, even in professions such as accounting. So basically the idea really what they're trying to do is that that by picking people from a lot of different professions, they're hoping to show how a lot of the stuff related to the pandemic is not always just industry specific. It's actually something that's happening to a lot of people, even some people that are working in stable or professions that are believed to be stable, such as accounting, were even going through difficulties. So what this is showing is that in a lot of ways, almost every industry, obviously some industries particularly more than others, but in a lot of ways, almost every industry was actually impacted indirectly by some way, shape, or form. What they even tried to use is they tried to bring up the statistic or to counter the argument that because a lot of the Republicans, and again, speaking objectively, is a lot of the people that ended unemployment were stating that the reason that they wanted to end unemployment, so in this case Governor DeSantis, the reason that Governor DeSantis wanted to end unemployment was because he believed that it would incentivize people to come back to work. But based on actual raw data and numbers that have already been, calculated and have been studied over the last month and a half, they found that there was actually no difference that ended up changing between when they actually ended unemployment and then when unemployment was still going on in terms of how the actual unemployment rates changed. So what they're hoping to do is that by using this argument, they're hoping to try to sway the judge to hopefully now try to, win some voice into their side. Now, in terms of what was the argument on the other side, so in other words, by Governor DeSantis' lawyer, is that they essentially, all they really spoke about was how they, literally just in his words, he basically just stated about how, number one, it's not true, and number two is that all of these lawsuits, Governor DeSantis does have the power to take it away. Basically, he just says that it's optional. There's not really much else he said beyond that. I'm just literally saying like that's physically. So the idea really, I think, is that from reading about a lot of different lawsuits, I think Florida, in my personal opinion, probably had actually one of the most crafted and well-planned lawsuits, in the sense that they really had a very diverse group of people testify. They had all of their papers in order. They finally had the hearing, even though it did took a while, because again, keep in mind that they did have to postpone it the first time, although that was a lot more for logistical reasons. But the big thing is that because of what's happening right now in Florida, the final conclusion that the judge ended up stating, or what was the final aftermath is that they ended up deciding to come to a decision that they're going to allow both parties, so essentially the unemployed people and then Governor DeSantis and his team, to basically plea or write down a statement as their final case, and they're going to submit it to the judge by the end of Thursday, which is today if you're watching this on release date, so Thursday, August 26th, 2021, and that they're hoping to compile this and try to bring it together to make a final decision. And the judge believes that he's going to be able to make that decision on Friday, so essentially by the end of this week, specifically on August 27, 2021. Now, I think it's important to notice is that the judge is finally hoping to make the decision then, but it doesn't necessarily mean, now maybe they actually will, and in many cases they actually have, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that decision is going to be released into the public until maybe something later. So we don't know when we're going to actually find information about the actual decision, but we do know is that with everything according, going to schedule and everything as planned is that they're going to have a decision now by the very, very end of this week, which is essentially Friday, as just mentioned, Friday, August 27th. So we don't know what the answer is, but that's something that we're going to hopefully have to kind of just stay on the alert for, to maybe potentially find out. Maybe consider subscribing if you guys are brand new here and interested in maybe hearing about what actually ends up in the aftermath if we do hopefully finally end up getting information about it. But really beyond this is, I think that with a lot of the other states, especially such as like Arkansas and Oklahoma, they've already won their injunction. The difficulty, I will admit, that's going on right now is that they're really just trying to figure out how to plan the logistic to actually try to physically bring it over. But of course that goes a little bit more in deep, so we're probably going to have to save that for another day, but that's really the most that we know for now. But essentially that's pretty much what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys maybe found that insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button, or feel free to maybe comment or share any particular questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all, or any information as always is always greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you guys are interested in more, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.